So I don't know if you'll be able to tell by my voice, but I'm sick and dying right now. But I still really wanted to get this video out before the end of the year. So I nuked my body with the strongest painkiller I had at my house. And now I'm here recording this video for you guys. The end of the year is usually bad for me, upload-wise. And I think I just wanted to prove something to myself. And I should be posting this on New Year's Eve, so of course, Happy New Year's Eve to all of you. And hell, if the laziest Genshin content creator of all time is able to get out one last video for the year, maybe I can help push some of you guys to do whatever you wanted to do before the year ends. I've been watching too much superhero media recently, so I'm just gonna stop rambling and let's start the video. Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be talking about the 3 Krai DPSs and talking about just how much Columbina is able to provide for these characters. And regarding Nefer and Flins, I'm gonna be talking about some cool new techniques or optimizations you can do to ensure you get even more out of them, all while comparing these new units to Mavuika and Skirk and talking about their general optimizations and improvements that have been made. But before we do that, as always, if at any points during the video you're entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to my lovely channel members, your support means the world to me, I love you all. Hope you guys are having amazing holidays wherever you are. Here's to 2026, and also... So right now, Varessa and Shalonen are finally here. So if you'd like to cut down on the costs while going for them, then I would like to announce the sponsor for today's video, LD Shop. LD Shop is a very safe and reliable top-up site that allows you to get Primo Gems at a great deal starting from 15% off, while keeping your data safe. As for transactions, you only need to type in your UID and region, as you can see me doing here. Just needed to quickly refresh my welkin, and as you can see, it's here. And make sure to use my link, as that way you'll receive an extra 15% off coupon, as well as a 5% off coupon which can save you up to $50. LD Shop goes through official channels as well, meaning that you won't lose any of the in-game benefits like first-time top-up bonuses, so no need to worry. And additionally, because LD Shop is so great, users who spend over $80 will receive a VIP membership which rewards you with free welcome moons. So head over to ldshop.gg using my link in the description below. What are you waiting for? Thanks to LD Shop for sponsoring this video, now back to it. So do you guys remember in 2022 when Hyperbloom with Nahida released and people were like, oh, we're never getting a stronger team than this? And then in 2023 we got Nouvelette, and then the community once again said, oh, we're just never getting a stronger DPS than this. Nouvelette is basically perfect. And then in 2024 we had Arlecchino, and once again it's like, oh, she's such a strong DPS, we're just never going to get anyone that does more damage than her. And then at the beginning of 2025 we got Mavuika, and once again, the community said we're never getting a stronger DPS than this. Now let's fast forward 1 year later. Now Columbina's about to release, and it seems like we're about to get a DPS stronger than Mavuika. Multiple DPSs stronger than Mavuika, depending on your assumptions. And we're going to talk about those assumptions now, as well as set the ceiling for where Mavuika and Skirk are at currently. Now in this video, I'm going to be showing a lot of numbers, but please remember the game isn't done through spreadsheet calculations. It's done by actually playing the game. Hell, if you take a look at their current staging and see what people are actually clearing with, most of them didn't boot up numbers in an Excel spreadsheet and then start recording their staging clears. They played the game and experimented to see what clears the best for them. No sane person would ever recommend that you run Nefer and Xingqiu together, but for this staging where you need to break the Baptist shields the fastest, Xingqiu is just the most convenient, and that isn't something that a spreadsheet or calcs will tell you. The numbers in my videos are so people know I'm not pulling things out of my ass, and it just helps to evaluate characters better. There's a lot more nuance that goes into meta evaluations than who just cheats the highest, so I hope you'll hear everything I have to say. Enough yapping. Mavuika. She's the current damage ceiling of the game, and there are kind of a lot of asterisks about her calculations. Her strongest team is obviously Melt, which is comprised of Bennett and Sitlali, but the last slot gets kind of iffy, as technically C6 Yansan is the best option, which puts Mavuika at close to 140k DPS, but at the same time, most people don't have a C6 Yansan, and then when calculating with other options like Jilinin or C2 Yansan, or options like Sucrose, then her DPS usually ranges from like 125k to 130k. But then not only that, this is the casual Mavuika combo, where you're doing 2 sets of 3 charge attacks and a finisher. It's pretty easy to do, honestly, it's in my Mavuika guide, but most people aren't even doing this, and it's pretty easy in my opinion. But there are better ways to optimize Mavuika combos, which my friend Butterfur made a video on. I don't care enough about Mavuika to learn these combos, but for anyone who does, this is like a free 15 to 20k DPS increase. And then there's a double cryo combo with a Scofia which looks like this. and once again, it's extremely strong. I don't like using these combos as the standard because, I can't do them, and I don't think most people are going to go past the more casual combo. But yes, Mavuika can shoot from the 130k range to the 150s via just combo optimizations, and that is where the current game ceiling is. Speaking of combo optimizations, let's talk about Skirk, the queen of brute forcing. This will thankfully be a quicker segment, in which there is walk cancel Skirk and dash cancel Skirk. Dash cancels are the easier combos to perform with Skirk, and you get around 24 normal attacks, which puts her DPS at 130k, and then walk cancels give you 34 normal attacks, but they are generally harder to perform. Another optimization I don't see people doing is putting their Escoffier on scroll. Yes, Escoffier isn't a Natlan character, so you don't get the full effects of the scroll set, but it is a 12% Hydro and Cryo damage bonus to your entire team that lasts your entire rotation, that buffs your Skirk who does a majority of the team's damage, and it scales better the more investment you have in your Skirk. So yes, me and you will be farming a scroll set for Escoffier. Anyways, let's talk about what you guys are here for the Krai DPSs. Starting off with Flins, before we even get into his numbers, there actually has been a way to optimize the damage on Flins teams that a lot of the English-speaking theory crafters didn't know about, and unlike Mavuika or Skirk combos, it's extremely easy to do. So the way a lot of people have been calculating Flins is by Sucrose just doing one swap before Flins' field time, and therefore Viridescent would only be active for Flins' DPS window. So like 6 or 7 seconds of Flins' fields, I swear to god, 6-7 in series wasn't this common before the meme, and now I see it literally everywhere and I hate it. Basically outside of your damage window, you're a Nefer, and your Hydra unit who is also contributing to Lunar Charged. They weren't really getting buffed by Viridescent. And the quick fix to this is simply just using Sucrose before and after Flins' field time, and what this does is allow you to get full uptime on Sucrose's elemental mastery buffs and the Viridescent shred, and because Flins isn't like an overwhelming majority of the team's damage, buffing a Nefer and now Columbina's damage just shoots his teams up by a decent amount, and is just the optimal way to play his teams. Regarding what Columbina does for Flins, I've already made a whole video covering Columbina's kit in detail, but Columbina is just a very strong sub DPS, while giving a small base damage bonus to make Lunar Charge stronger, and every time reaction Lunar Charge damage procs, there's a 33% chance for it to just strike again, which I don't think I need to explain how insane that is. Now without Columbina, with the addition of the new Morningstar artifact set which you can equip on a Nefer, and with the Sucrose refresh technique, Flins was sitting at around 120k DPS, but with the addition of Columbina, Flins is now at 150k DPS, which is insane. This makes him theoretically above Skirk even with walk cancels, and would also put him ahead of Mavuika with casual combos, while being infinitely simpler to play. Flins mains, I'm sorry for anything I've said about him in the past, I apologize, please don't take my soul. Flins is indeed goated, and I really wish I did know about this technique earlier, as I feel like it could have helped a lot of people, especially optimizing C0 Flins gameplay, but he's getting a rerun the patch after Columbina, so thankfully not that much of a sin. A lot of people were also asking me about if a Nefer or Columbina was more important to Flins teams. Here's a calculation comparison of that. Nefer is just a bigger boost to Flins teams than Columbina, and she also doubles as a sustain, so yeah. We can now talk about my favorite DPS, Nefer. Now similar to Flins, Columbina just does a ton of damage on Nefer teams, which is mostly facilitated by Llama's quills, and while not being a direct damage increase, her unique buff to Lunar Bloom teams is that you will gain 3 additional Verdant dues. Nefer teams currently have a problem to where no matter how many dues you start with, there's always going to be a delay on your last charge attack, simply because dues don't have enough time to regenerate. And the ways to circumvent this has been via burst cancelling one of your charge attacks, with the burst animation giving you enough time for another due to be generated, and there are also characters like Sucrose and Cookie that are able to swap in after Nefer's first 3 charge attacks to refresh any of their buffs, and this gives you enough time that when you swap back into Nefer, you don't run into the due issue. With the extra dues from Columbina, however, you just never run into this problem, and it also allows you to use a hold skill with Llama to increase the amount of quills you have, while also boosting Llama's personal damage. This never really mattered that much for Nefer teams, but with Columbina doing off-field Lunar Bloom damage, this does take away from Llama's quills and therefore you need to do the hold E. Anyways, DPS calculations, Nefer's one of my favorites, so I did look at a lot of teams for her, so I'll just talk about them as I flash them on screen. The first I looked at were her 2 sustainless teams with Nahida and Sucrose, the Nahida variant being her strongest team at 156k DPS, with the Sucrose variant following close behind. And then I wanted to look into sustains in which we have Kuki and Baizu. Baizu, isn't that great. Cookie on the other hand performs quite well, enabling some spreads, and being 142k DPS. And then lastly, I just tried the Queen of Nordkrai and Nefer, in which Nefer becomes our strongest team with a sustain for full Nordkrai National, so Nefer is honestly even a good pull for Nefer. Though running a team with this many valuable Nordkrai supports may be a hindrance to your other teams. And lastly, to anyone asking if Columbina is more important or Llama to Nefer, Llama's quills do a lot to Nefer's damage, and there isn't really that many good supports for Nefer, since the Danger roster is just so underdeveloped. So yes, Llama is going to be the priority. Columbina doesn't really buff Nefer's damage at all, and unlike Flins, whose unique buff increases lunar charge damage, the Lunar Bloom increased verdant do count as mostly quality of life more than anything, so getting things like Llama or Nefer's constellations can be similar increases to adding Columbina to your teams, so that is something to consider. But the quality of life of never having to worry about dues is just such a big upside to me that I can honestly still recommend getting Columbina for Nefer regardless. Oh, I almost forgot, but because of the increased due count, it means you'll no longer need to burst with Nefer to stall for your last due, so you can very easily build 0 ER Nefer and burst every other rotation, and it isn't really griefing anymore. Lastly, let's talk about Zibai, and theoretically she does have lower numbers than Nefer or Flins, and she's also tied to a C6 4-star that adds 20k DPS via constellations. But like I discussed in my Luna 4 value analysis, what you can do instead is just skip Columbina entirely and just go really hard on Illiga constellations, get him to C6, which in turn should give you a C1 or C2 Zibai, and especially if you get a C2 Zibai, that is going to be stronger and in my opinion a much better investment than trying to get both Columbina and Zibai and ending up with like a C1 Illiga. Nothing much more to say about Zibai considering she isn't out yet. So in conclusion, Mavuika and Skirk are garbage, they're washed, they're trash and unusable. That was sarcasm. The biggest elephant in the room pertaining to Nordkrai DPS is just the fact that they need Columbina to reach these numbers, and there is only 1 Columbina and 3 Nordkrai DPS. So unless we get Columbina alternatives, then you can only really have one of these Nordkrai DPS boosted to the top at a time. And even individually, as I said at the start of the video, damage calcs don't mean everything, and there are pretty much pros and cons of all the DPSs. I think the biggest upside of the Nordkrai units is just the fact that they're all so easy to play, or at least much easier than trying to optimize Mavuika combos, as Genshin kind of dummified the gameplay down when we went into Nordkrai, and the fact that a lot of the Nordkrai units don't really take any contested supports. Like Nefer does take Llama, but Llama is best with Nefer regardless, and then I've already showcased the plethora of options you have for your last slot. Flins takes Sucrose, who is contested, that's fair, but there isn't a lot of teams that need Sucrose to function per se, so having her for Flins shouldn't really be a big deal. And then Zibai is taking Goro, Zhongli, and Shiori, who haven't seen play since the 90s. Like the only competition they have is with their Hydra slot with Aino or Columbina, and they're only competing with themselves, which is a problem you can avoid by simply just pulling for one Nordkrai DPS and hyper-investing into them. Then regarding Mavuika and Skirk, one thing I do like a lot about playing them is the fact that Mavuika is running like 2 to 3 sustains on her teams, and then Skirk has a fanfare boosted Escofia for healing, and can also run Sitlali, so they can just be more comfortable to pilot for some players. I don't know if this was the design intent, but all the Nordkrai DPSs either have poor sustains or none at all, really. Nefer's highest DPS team is using Prototype Amber, Columbina as a sustain, which isn't really that much healing. Flins relies purely on a Nefer shield, and while it is a good shield, it's not really the strongest thing in the world. The bottom half of this abyss, it was getting broken quite easily, but I'm not really going to complain, it is something and it's there. And then for Zibai, once again, she isn't really running sustains, except for Zhongli, who is good thankfully. But other than that, you have to rely on Goro or just Zibai's high defensive profile. Also, looping back to Nefer, I don't think playing her sustainless is the worst thing ever, as she's in iframes for half her field time, either through dash cancels or her burst. But again, compared to Mavuika and Skirk teams, the Nordkrai DPSs are weaker on that side. Regardless, I think I'm still leaning towards saying the Nordkrai DPSs are better than Mavuika and Skirk, just because the ease of use and damage you're able to get out of them is kind of absurd. But like with the sustain issue, they do have more chinks in their kit and playstyle, but I do think that'll be easier to manage the more experience you get with them. All of the top tiers are so close in damage to where it honestly doesn't really matter. Just use whatever DPS checks the Stygian boss or Abyss Chamber the best for you, and you want multiple teams anyways. Mavuika, Skirk, and the Nordkrai DPS don't really have any overlap. so you can just hyper invest in 3 of these teams and just be set for like the next year or 2. The biggest thing Mavuika does have over the Krai DPSs is the fact that her front-loaded and melted nuke just can't be replicated, and with how much health it deletes at the point in time of your rotation when you cast it, I honestly still expect Mavuika to have faster clears against neutral bosses. Mavuika isn't getting any weaker, she's still broken as fuck. Now, is it a bad thing that a year after Mavuika's release, and with the trends that we've had per region, is it a bad thing that we're going to continue to get more Mavuika tier DPS units that are as strong as her optimized combos while being easier to play? And to me, Genshin has kind of always been doing this every year. I even memed about it at the start of the video, but quite literally every year we have the same discourse to where the new broken thing is stronger than the old broken thing, so I don't necessarily think power creep is the issue. I have an entirely different problem with Genshin's balancing, which I might make a video on later. I just wish the leaps in damage weren't as big. Nefer and Flins are jumping up by like 30k DPS in one patch. I just don't think the jump ever needed to be that big. And obviously in a perfect world the game would be more balanced and there'd be less power creep. But again, Genshin has made it pretty clear that they are willing to power creep things. I just wish it wasn't to such an insane degree. But with that, I think I'm done rambling, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on this whole new Big 3 debacle, as I'd love to hear it and I respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, I love you, thank you so much for the continued support, and I hope I can continue to entertain you going into 2026. Happy New Year's everyone, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.